All right, today we're going to dive into the incredible story of a revolutionary aircraft, a string of terrifying disasters, and, well, an invisible killer that was hiding in plain sight. This is the mystery of the de Havilland Comet.
You know, in the early 1950s, this thing was basically science fiction brought to life. The de Havilland Comet, the world's very first commercial jetliner. I mean, you gotta remember, this was an age of propeller planes. The comet promised a new golden era of flying, higher, faster, and way smoother than anyone even thought was possible. It wasn't just another plane, it was the future. And it had arrived.
But that amazing dream very quickly became a global nightmare. Because without any warning, without a single Mayday call, these incredible machines would just, well, they'd disintegrate in the middle of a flight. The entire fleet was grounded, and this massive investigation kicked off to hunt down a silent, brutally efficient killer.
Okay, so with the whole fleet on the ground and the world watching, the investigators' first job was to find a pattern. They had to figure out what was connecting these seemingly random, awful events.
And pretty quickly, a really terrifying pattern started to emerge. First off, the pilots never even had a chance to radio for help. And get this, the wreckage showed zero signs of sabotage, bad weather, or engine trouble. The only link was that every single plane broke apart while it was just peacefully cruising through the sky. And that cruising altitude was right around 10,000 meters, or 33,000 feet. Now, way up there, the conditions are pretty extreme. So the big question was, what kind of force, something that only exists at that specific altitude, could be powerful enough to literally tear a state-of-the-art airplane to pieces?
With all the usual suspects, bombs, storms, engine failure, cleared, investigators knew they were dealing with something way more subtle. They were hunting an invisible force, one that was hidden in the basic physics of flying at high altitudes.
So this became the central question, and answering it launched one of the greatest forensic engineering investigations in history, one that would completely change how we build planes forever. And the answer, as it turns out, was hiding in two key concepts.
First up, cabin pressurization. See, to keep us all safe and comfortable way up there where the air is thin, the plane's body, its fuselage, is pumped full of compressed air. This essentially turns the whole aircraft into a pressurized can, which creates this constant outward pushing force on its metal skin.
And the second clue is something called metal fatigue. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because metal can actually get tired, just like a person. Think about it. If you take a paperclip and you bend it back and forth again and again, it gets weaker, and then eventually it just snaps. The exact same thing can happen to the metal skin of an airplane.
And this is where those two forces work together like a deadly team. Every single flight created a cycle of stress. The fuselage would expand, just a tiny bit, as the cabin pressurized on the way up, and then it would relax on the way down. This constant push and pull, over thousands of flights, was exactly like bending that paperclip again and again and again.
So, after painstakingly reassembling wreckage they pulled from the seafloor and running these groundbreaking tests in a giant custom-built water tank, the investigators finally found their culprit. And it wasn't some complex system failure. No, it was something almost disturbingly simple.
Here's the bombshell. All that enormous stress from the pressurization, it wasn't being spread out evenly across the plane's skin. Instead, it was all piling up, getting focused into one tiny, incredibly vulnerable spot, the sharp corners of the comet's beautiful, but as it turns out, fatally flawed square windows.
This gets us to a key engineering idea called stress concentration. Okay, think of it like a river. If the riverbank is a smooth curve, the water just flows easily past it. But if that bank has a sharp 90-degree corner, well, you can just imagine how the water would slam into that one point with incredible force. The square corners of those windows were doing the exact same thing, but with physical stress.
And here you can see the problem and the solution, right next to each other. On the left, those square windows created dangerous weak points, the perfect starting place for metal fatigue to create tiny invisible cracks. And with every flight, those cracks just grew and grew, until one day the pressure was just too much and catastrophic failure. But on the right, you see the solution. A simple, elegant curve that spreads that exact same stress out harmlessly.
The tragedy of the de Havilland Comet became one of the most important lessons in aviation history, a lesson written in metal and, unfortunately, learned at a terrible cost.
This discovery was a total revelation.
The answer wasn't more powerful engines or thicker metal. It was simple geometry. Making aircraft windows oval became a fundamental non-negotiable rule of aircraft design practically overnight.
The legacy of the Comet is just profound. It completely changed how we understand materials behaving under stress, and it led to the rigorous testing standards that are totally universal today. So the next time you're on a flight, take a look at the window next to you. That smooth, rounded shape isn't just for looks. You're looking at a direct lesson learned from this disaster, a piece of brilliant engineering that makes your flight incredibly safe.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other simple, elegant, and often invisible engineering solutions are all around us, keeping us safe in ways we never even stop to think about?